In this session of FrameFixers.com videos, we're going to be taking a look at a very popular frame that has, as many frames do, an Achilles heel, a particular weak point that produces failures that have to be repaired. This is a very, very nice pair of Oakley sunglasses that have extraordinary lenses. These are just lenses to die for. The frame itself is that wonderful series of Oakleys that has kind of an organic, futuristic, almost Henry Moore sculpture-looking castings in titanium of the arms and the frame front, wonderfully designed and executed. The problem with this model, unfortunately, is the spring hinge. This model is equipped with spring hinges on both sides. And the flaw is that the spring hinge assembly, which is actually located in the forward part of the frame, unlike most frames, where the spring hinge assembly is in the arm as it approaches the hinge screw. In this particular model, right behind the stylized O for Oakley, is a spring. And that spring terminates in a small, very, very thin, almost razor-thin silver blade that goes into the temple arm. And unfortunately, it is attached to an extremely thin draw rod. That draw rod is possibly 70 gauge. Unfortunately, for that reason, this tends to snap, and we get these in with one or both of the arms broken off. What we have come up with is a solution whereby we not only repair but upgrade this model by drilling out the housing in this area here to accommodate a robust size drawspring assembly. And I'll be showing you that in close-up form. The key being that the arm itself is still in good shape. The blade, which comes off still attached to the eyelet screw, is outside the frame. We replace it with a new one, and then we machine not only the receiver slot in the temple arm, but we drill into the titanium a larger diameter tubular hole, which then receives the larger spring assembly, which then becomes easily 3 times the size of the one that it began with, and we have yet to have one of these come back once it's been converted. We'll be showing you now the difference in size between the Oakley original and the replacement that Frame Fixers has devised. We're going to take a little closer look at the problem with these Oakley models that have the forward mounted spring hinge assembly. And to take the component parts apart, what we basically have is, in models such as the crosshair and the square wire and the wire tap, is we have a draw rod which is approximately 0.65 millimeters. And that's actually the only thing that holds the temple arm onto the frame front. So when that rod breaks, you are without an attachment point that would allow the temple arm to remain in place, spring back and forth, and be worn. The spring that goes around this is inherently quite small. And the spring isn't a problem in the sense that it breaks. It's very small in diameter and does not have a great deal of strength to it. And then, of course, the part that winds up still attached to the frame front is this thin blade comma-shaped piece, which is what you will see captured by the screw on the frame, on the temple arm side of the hinge, once it has broken off. So this spring is hosted by that rod attaches to this spring head, and that's exactly where it breaks. Right where the rod goes into the tang head and where the tang head is retained by the screw. Now, the drill that's used to make the cylindrical hole that hosts this inside the frame is approximately that size. And that's a number 1.7. 1.7. 1.7 mm. 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 1.7 What we do is we take a larger drill, which is this, which is a 3.1, and we drill out the hole in the Oakley frame front and install a frame fixer's assembly, which is much, much larger, right here. And you can see already the difference in size between this spring and the one that's on that unit. You can see the difference between that first draw rod and the one that we install. In order to do this, we have to drill into the titanium frame front and produce a small cylindrical hole that large in diameter in order to accommodate this spring assembly, which, as I said, is double the size of the one that it comes with, thus producing a draw rod that can actually host and sustain the force required to keep these temple arms on your head when the unit is in use. The rod actually in the frame fixer's unit is actually a hardened screw. It's not simply a rod, and that screw is adjustable, as you can see from the back end of it, which allows us to adjust the tension on the back side of that tang head. The Oakley unit unfortunately doesn't have that provision. We've done several dozen of these to date, and none of them have come back, so we feel that we have found a way to keep this particular Oakley problem from reoccurring. And that is the framefixers.com solution to the thin Oakley draw rod in the front-mounted spring hinge assemblies in the square wire, in the crosshair, and in the wire tap that converts them from this diameter to that diameter. You'll also notice that the tang head, which in the Oakley model is quite thin, it's blade-like, it's quite a different gauge than the one that we utilize. And that is the repair and upgrade of the Oakley spring hinge assembly forward mounted in certain models with a very, very thin draw rod, which we are able to upgrade and prevent breakage.